Hey guys, this is Casper with Tape, and today you join me for episode 5 of A New World. And today we start with another satellite launch. I seem to be doing a lot of these recently. I'm stuck having to make money. But there are more interesting things this episode. But I do quite like doing these. I don't find these not interesting. I find them a bit of a challenge, because you gotta pinpoint an orbit. Um, and I just kind of quite like it. I think it's a nice addition to the game. This rocket kind of falls to the floor because they take a while to throttle up because they're KW engines. Um, but anyway, it speeds up into 4 times time accelerate. That wasn't just a massive boost in power. So yeah, just to get through this a little quicker. So yeah, we will go obviously to the designated orbit and try and get a little money. Although this is acting a little weird, this rocket. Like, usually it's pretty hard to control, not having SAS, you have to do it all yourself. But this is just, goes a bit weird. Then it flips out of control because of, Ferrum Aerospace. But, because, that's because it was pointed kind of the wrong way, so it flips out of control. But something weird is going on with this rocket. And it was a very annoying launch to film because of what is weird is going on. And you can see this is jerking everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of things I try to do to fix it, but nothing is solving this problem. It is flipping all over the place. It's going nuts. And now the problem is the reaction wheel is doing something weird. It's just turning by itself. It's just flipping constantly by itself. So you always have to fight that. But when you're fighting it, the force doesn't act. So you can't just hold a constant force. Once you apply force, the spinning force that is induced constantly doesn't act. So it only acts when you're not fighting it. So it's very, very, very difficult to... So yeah, so you like push the other way, and then it stops acting, so you push in the way of the force, and then it creates even more of a spin, and if you just leave it, it just does this. It's just... Yeah, and I can turn off the reaction wheel, obviously. You're like, oh, well, just turn off the reaction wheel. But the probe doesn't have reaction wheels, and gimbaling engines aren't particularly good for control either, unless you're, planning things out. And I didn't plan to have a defective reaction wheel, so I'm really wanting to unlock advanced SAS. I'm tired of not having SAS. A lot of the time I'm like, oh, doesn't really matter. But usually you have a bit. You have like the bit in the probes or the bit in the pod and everything's fine. But you can see how crazy it's going on the nav ball. It's just ridiculous. This is horrible. But I better get paid very well for this. Very upset. No, this was actually very annoying. And I completely missed the orbit because the reaction wheel was being annoying. I thought maybe if I went back to the Space Center and, reloaded, it'd fix it, but it didn't. It's just properly a broken reaction wheel. So it is just like having a bit of a hardware failure. So yay, realism. And if you leave it for long enough, and especially at 4 times time accelerate, it looks insane. But I just ended up just leaving it while I was doing some planning. But yeah, it was horrifying. So anyway, I'm going to put myself in the correct, inclination. Although that will be difficult. You can see how hard it is to maintain. This was a weird one. It was a weird one, a weird, horrible one. Made me want to slap a Kerbal, or whack a Kerbal as the cheat is called. Anyway, now it's just a matter of figuring out how to actually put it in the right orbit. I tried to do something fancy. Then I realized I'm not very good at doing fancy things, so I just kind of burn prograde. So I get roughly to where I should be, burn prograde, and apparently, that counts. I didn't realize that was like way off, but apparently that's good enough. And then the probe goes insane. It's just having none of it. I left this sped up to 4 times time accelerate because I thought it looked funny. But, yeah. So I did get the money, did complete the mission, I powered through, and there's no quick saving or quick loading or reverting, so I couldn't get out of it. So it was either that or lose like 10 grand, and I was having none of that. So yeah, I kind of need a new mission, don't I? Yeah, this one looks nice. What am I thinking? Okay, apparently I'm not getting a mission this time. Let's go to the R&D center. Ooh, I don't have any, enough science. Well, I better get some science then, shouldn't I? Well, I have a look. Yeah, look, I'm even looking at the reaction wheel like, I want you so much. Yeah, so let's get some science. First thing I'm going to do, test out some new hardware. I'm thinking that I don't actually need to put a man on the moon to complete my kind of explore the moon mission. It doesn't say anything about men. It says fly past, orbit, land on, return science from. Basically, I think those are the objectives, or something similar to that. So it doesn't say anything about men. So I'm thinking maybe I can just put a guy on it. Then I realize I don't have an SAS. So maybe this isn't so this isn't so easy. And it is actually looking back at this, it looks like I'm doing pretty well, and flipping out a bit, but it was quite difficult. This is actually a very difficult thing to do, because when you've got 3 dimensions of things to control, where you've got to control your up and down, which is an engine, and you've got to control your left, right, forward, back, your spin, and like the angle of your landing legs. It's a very difficult thing to do when you don't have like SAS holding it in place. And anyway, but I do manage to kind of bring it down. This was just kind of a flight test. But I'm thinking I kind of do want to put a man on the moon, although it makes sense to put a probe on the moon first. But one second. Just needed a cough. I'm still got a cough, not particularly ill, but I do have a cough. Anyway, let's touch down. So yeah, I've got lots of different plans for landing on the moon. It makes sense to land a probe on the moon first, but this is Kerbal Space Program, and I've played a lot of Kerbal Space Program, so I could probably just put a man on there. But the thing with putting a man down is he can't EVA right now, because, and I don't want to put a man down and not EVA. What would be the fun in that? So, we'll figure something out. Anyway, on to our next launch. Another launch at the moon, but not to the moon, really. I assume it's in the air right now. Sony Vegas, again, is not showing me this footage. It thinks it's probably more of a challenge if I can't see it. But yeah, this is kind of like a bigger version of one of the rockets I've already launched. The big one with solid rocket boosters from last episode, which was Kerbal 2, which went to the moon. This is a slightly bigger launch vehicle, as I've said. Sony Vegas is being such a darling. Anyway, this is basically doing a similar thing, except it's not going to go into orbit. And it's just going to get science. It's going to get a lot of science from low down near the moon. Yeah, so that's why it's a much bigger rocket, because it's got a ton of science payload. Literally, that's including the heat shield. That is 1 ton, and the heat shield is important for the science because it returns it. Now, there's no mission that's being completed here, around the moon, but I did have to pay for the mission somehow. And I wasn't just going to take it out of my own pocket. I'm saving up for buildings and stuff. Buildings are expensive. So I'm being paid to get some science from low Earth orbit. Low Kerbin orbit. You will realize that that was a terrible launch profile. It's because I think at first I pointed the wrong way. I started leaning south, and then I tried to correct it, and then it wouldn't tip over very quickly. And now I'm going over my Apple Waps, and that's usually fine, but I kind of screw it up a bit. Yeah, this wasn't a great launch, but it will be a great mission. Anyway, so now I drift back into the atmosphere, and Sony Vegas decides I'm not allowed to see that. But anyway, I'm thinking might as well reduce my Apple Waps by, belly flopping into the atmosphere. I thought that wouldn't reduce it that much, given that it's, 4 kilometers in. Well, more like 3 kilometers in. But no, apparently there's an insane amount of drag. So I point forward and have to keep burning my engines because apparently the drag is real. Not that I can see, because, man, Sony Vegas is really annoying. But anyway, the drag on the spacecraft is getting pretty ridiculous, so I have to keep burning. And this was very annoying. This took quite a while. I just keep, drifting through the atmosphere. And the problem when you're in a really low orbit in the atmosphere is you stay in the atmosphere for ages. And every time you ignite your engine now, it turns physical time acceleration off, which is actually incredibly annoying. So, yeah. Anyway, I wonder if I'm still in the atmosphere. I literally can't tell because Sony Vegas is being wonderful. But anyway, I guess I'll be heading off to the moon. Oh, here we go. Yeah, out of the atmosphere. Anyway, I've got to take that report from, I assume I've circularized my orbit now. Yeah, now we're going to the moon, okay. I really must get new software. Anyway, I grabbed that mystery goo report from in Kerbin orbit, and that will provide, I think, 20,000 funds, which more than pays for the mission. The mission costs about 18,000 with the rocket and the vehicle and everything. But anyway, now we're off to the moon. Pretty big upper stage. I quite like this upper stage. I do like this rocket. It's very, it's about as big as I can really get with a meaningful payload, given my 30-part limit. Anyway, and this is my best encounter yet. I love not being able to. I do quite like not being able to see exactly what's going to happen. with my, with where I'm headed when I pass a body, because then you have to kind of guess and get good at just kind of guessing. And that was pretty good. That was only a bit in the moon, which is my best yet. Anyway, it did need a correction, however. Then I overcorrected, because I want to get below like 25 kilometers, because then I know I'm going to be low down near the moon, and it's nice to be close to the moon. As long as you don't go below about 6 kilometers, you're probably fine. Yeah, I mean, so a rule of thumb, stay above 10 kilometers, you'll be fine. There's no atmosphere, unlike the real moon, where there is a slight tenuous atmosphere. Anyway, let's grab a crew report, shall we? 9 science, rather wonderful. Observe the materials bay, or turn the materials bay. Anyway, observe the materials bay. 45 science, that's what I need. I do actually need 40 science. Now, there's actually a 100 science cap on the research thing. However, that cap is for how much I can spend on stuff, not for how much can be stockpiled, which I did not know. So I was all like, oh my god, I'm going to lose some of this science. That would be way too mean. Anyway, let's drift away from the moon now, with Kerbal 3 flying past the moon beautifully. And then we get a really nice beauty shot of Kerbin spinning, which I stare at for far too long. But it does look nice. Well, not on Sony Vegas's half-resolution screen, which keeps flickering horribly with this annoying bar of static. I hate you, Sony Vegas. You ruined my life. But anyway, it is a nice shot. But I stared at it for too long, and now I'm drifted really far. Luckily, I have loads of fuel, though, so it's fine. Ronnie was like, can we, mission control, can you stop staring at the... Can you start going? I mean, interesting story, actually. I think it was like the third Mercury mission. The guy was like such a romanticist about space that he used almost all his fuel just turning his spacecraft to look at stuff he wanted to see. And he pretty much almost got stuck in space just because he liked looking at stuff. That's probably how I'd die in space. Not a space battle, just, ran out of fuel looking at things. That's definitely how I'd die. Anyway, let's get smacked by our service module and return. However, the problem is I didn't really tuck those mystery goo units in very well, so I have to keep kind of turning, to stop them burning off. And they're both very important because one of them has like 20 science in them, and the other one pays for the mission. So, is science more important or is money more important? Well, money pays for science, therefore money is probably more important. And money buys you things. Fuck bitches, get money. Or fuck money, get bitches. Either way, works. It works both ways. Anyway, let's deploy our first parachute. I use it kind of like a drogue chute, even though it's not a drogue chute, because drogue chutes are made of like Kevlar. So because, so they don't burn off. I always thought that was weird having a Kevlar parachute. But if someone shoots at you, you'll be fine. Although it's not actually like a Kevlar vest, I think. I actually have no idea. Well, no, I think it's just interwoven. Never really seen a drogue shooting up close and personal. Anyway, let's grab some science. And then I'm thinking, oh no, it has a science limit, not knowing that doesn't mean how much science I can have total. It means how much science I can spend on R&D. Very stupid of me. Foolish Peter. He should be extradited or something. I don't even really know what that word means. So, wow, I'm off topic. Anyway, let's go do the science. 127 science. That'll buy me an SAS unit. Well, not buy me, it'll research me an SAS unit. And that's what's important, because I need my stability assistance control. My stability assistance system? that's a tongue twister. Stability assistance system. Stabilizer. Lame. Advanced Stability Assistance Stabilizer. That is what SES is. And I get that nice looking probe and some RCS, all that crap. And I'm going to upgrade that. I want more missions. If I can take on more missions, I can earn more money, and then I can buy new buildings. Because I really want to upgrade the VAB. Oh, look how nice the new thingy looks, though. Yeah, but I really want to upgrade the VAB. I want more than 30 goddamn parts in my spacecrafts. Anyway, explore Minmus. Well, I can take on 7 missions now. So yeah, might as well. I could start doing that. Build a new orbital station. That could be cool. I rarely do any of these visual surveys because I think they kind of need a plane on Kerbin, and they need a lot of fuel on the moon. But yeah, they kind of need a plane on Kerbin, surely, to get, like, below 9 kilometers. Or they're all, like, quite low down. I thought they were from space at first, but they're not. They're kind of, yeah, look, from, where is it, below 16 kilometers. I mean, I guess I could fly a rocket over it, but, feel like I kind of just need a plane, and I can get a plane, do some, visual surveys. They pay very well and give you nice science. And I don't know what I just took on. Oh yeah, that was the geostationary sat. So yeah, Sean Cannery. Oh, Sony Vegas though. So I have no idea what's on screen right now, but probably the launch of a rocket. And this rocket is taking a satellite to Keostationary orbit. That was the mission I just took on for Sean Cannery. This is I think this is GeoCan because it's Cannery and geostationary. Oh damn! It should have been Keocan. Damn it. Anyway, yeah, this is going to Keostationary orbit. Our first Keostationary satellite. It'll, I'm not actually sure if it is a Keostationary orbit because it's slightly different. It might be Keosyncrounous, but not stationary, because I think actually the mission may have been Keosyncrounous because it's not a circular orbit. So I mean, it can be synchronous and it'll be a 6-hour orbit, but stationary is actually where it stays above a point on the ground, and it's at an inclination as well, so it's not a stationary orbit. Because if you're at an inclination, you're not going to stay at the same place over the ground, are you? That's just logic. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, I'm actually taking a very tiny satellite because I unlocked a new probe which allows lots of connections, and I thought a tiny satellite would be appropriate, easy, and looks nice. And kind of looks a bit like how Discoverer looks on top of Falcon 9. It's like a tiny satellite, but because it went to Lagrange point 1, it needed to be tiny and needed a big rocket. Yeah, that was a interesting mission. Anyway. Let's burn prograde rather quickly. Burn slightly off, so I'll just warp round, perform a precision burn, and then perform an inclination change until I'm in the correct orbit to get paid. And will I be in it? Yeah, there we go. Now I just need to be there for 10 seconds. Apparently I've been there for 10 seconds. And then decouple the satellite. And yes, that is it. Anyway, well, now I'm gonna get a new astronaut complex because I want to be able to EVA in space. I'm bored of not EVAing. I want more science. So anyway, with that, I will see you next time. No, this has been KSP with Tape. I will see you next time. Get it right, Peter.